Welcome one and all to Riftlab Clash. This is a fantastic time, of course, to be joining the Riftbound scene. Of course, this particular event will be taking place over today and tomorrow. My name is Counterfeit, alongside Silent for today. Silent, can you tell the folks who are coming to this stream for the first time what the format is and what our players are playing for?
Yeah, exactly. And the biggest thing with the Riftlab Clash is going to be a little bit different than what we had a couple of weeks ago with that big tournament. Now, instead of having everyone all in one, we are going to have basically 8 different pods of 16 players each maximum. These events will run every 2 weeks as well, and players will compete in 4 Swiss rounds to earn points and standings inside the Riftlab League. Now, the top players, of course, of the league, with the highest points accumulated from these events, will earn automatic entry into the trial and receive a round 1 bye. So there's still a lot at stake in a big tournament that can be coming in the future.
So let's jump into the first of our 4 matches we'll be showing on stream today. Of course, we've also got our B stream running as well, showing even more matches. So we'll try and bring you as much as we possibly can. Let's jump into our first competitor. So we've got Presto running Lee Sin. Now, Simon, obviously you've a little bit more experience than me with the whole Riftbound scene. When you were telling me, Lee Sin isn't remotely as popular as the next deck list we'll be seeing.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen a big flash of the meta with being basically Lee Sin not necessarily being up there, but with this, he's definitely not one to bat an eye at. He is still having a great ability of being able to add buffs to any and all units as you see fit, but Lee Sin as a champion himself is going to be one to watch because you can add as many buffs as you can to him, so he can get big fast, and then you have some reinsurances out there with like the hourglass being able to buff things up to try to make sure that you're able to hold these battlefields and take them back when you lose them. So this is going to be an exciting match with Lee Sin.
And on the other side of the equation, Teko running the SETT deck. So this one, is pretty much more a kind of a standard approach to what we'd be expecting, right?
Yeah, and we've seen SETT here have a lot of top finishes in the tournaments that have been happening for Riftbound as a whole. The scariest thing about him is that his legend ability is pretty much one of the best in the game, being able to call back a unit that has a buff on it back to base instead of being killed. Now, of course, you are only able to do that once a turn in this case, but still, there are a lot of cards in here that have buffs that you are able to use to make sure that all of your units have those buffs, and then you pick and choose which ones you want to save. But that is scary because it can be a lot of might hitting you fast.
Well, I think it's, again, worth reiterating with the game being as young as it is right now, kind of, what we're going to be seeing in a little bit more detail from Techo's side of things here. So even if this is a more standard deck going in, what kind of play pattern are we going to be looking at in terms of, especially looking at the kind of battlefields we've got online here?
Yeah, exactly. And this is going to be the biggest thing with this is, the one thing that SETT can sometimes struggle with maybe is getting good card draw here. And we can see also in the opening hands that we have some good utility here as well. So SETT's going to be able to hit some ground running with getting out a good 2-drop, but also Sabotage is going to be a little bit scary because if he chooses to keep that, he can peek at the opponent's hand and remove a non-unit from their hand, and so that could be a pretty big differential from the get-go.
Oh yeah, I mean, any long-term TCG player is going to know that effect is always going to be incredibly good, especially when you've got things like the hidden units knocking around the place. It does look like from, of course, I'm not experienced with this Lee Sin deck, specifically Silent, but what we've got going on for Presto so far doesn't look hugely promising, whereas Teko seems to have a lot to do early on.
Yeah, well, and that's going to be something that's interesting. We did see the mulligans officially finish, so now each player is going to be drawing 1 additional card at the start of their turn. But no, you're exactly right, there is not necessarily a 2-drop that is going to be utilized. Is that going to be slowing him down? A little. But at the same time, they're not necessarily running as many 2-drops as we necessarily have seen other decks run, at least 2 or 3 drops at least. And so running, I think if I remember correctly, 11 so far. So we'll see if that might slow him down a little bit as we see the SETT player hitting the ground running.
Of course, Presto has the extra card coming in, so does at least manage to get out an early play. Just going to sneaky peek into that one. So in terms of, we know a little bit more with the set deck. We're just kind of trying to buff everything. We're dancing them back in and out of the battlefield. For the Lee Sin deck, you mentioned that we've got the potential to buff up the Lee Sin hugely later on, but we're already seeing, from Techo's side, from Techo's side of things, that we've got a lot of aggro on display early on.
Yeah, well, and just being able to make a big board presence here early is pretty scary, especially now Lee Sin, unless he has a character that has Accelerate, which I don't think he does necessarily, there's not going to be a whole lot that he might be able to do in this case, and so that's going to be an early 2 points for Teko here. But looks like he is actually going to be able to move in, ready, and challenge here, and see if that will be able to be utilized. Now, with that, Kiana's going to be an interesting choice right here, and it looks like the battlefield will be taken. But with the Kiana, you're going to be able to take a battlefield and then immediately either draw a card or be able to then exit runes. So you can get some ramp or some card draw, and that can be very helpful here as well.
I do want to recognize, though, on Presto's side of things, that's the Wizened Elder that's come in with the effect of being able to benefit additionally from the buffing effect to make him actually pretty solid for an early play.
Yeah, definitely there. And then we also saw what their gear was able to do. That's the Mistfall. And the ability of Mistfall is pretty dang strong, because it's when you buff a friendly unit, you may recycle a body rune and exhaust this to automatically ready that friendly unit. And so that's exactly what they were able to do to go ahead and attack in quick and be able to get things going. And so immediately was able to take back that battlefield.
Yeah, and I like that as well, especially considering what we were expecting here, which was to see, the Techo's deck really take over in early going. The Kiana you mentioned before will be heading across to the other battlefield. I think it's worth us mentioning what's going on with the battlefields here right now. So we've got the Vilemore layer down the bottom. Units can't move from here to base. We were suddenly expecting to see, at least on the set side of things, to be seeing quite a lot of movement being taken.
See in the middle of the board state as well that where the points are accumulated with that. So you're going to be seeing right now that Teko is at 2 points, and as well with that, Presto is going to be able to be at 1 as well. Now, cool new feature with this, we have the time counter for the round in the middle, but not only that, we get to see how many cards in hand each player has, and that updates in real time. So really cool information to be able to have right there for all you watching at home.
Yeah, shout out to production for a fantastic display here. I do want to take a note though, as we've now sort of settled in with one player taking each battlefield, so Presto's definitely got the momentum to bring out a Kiana of his own. I do want to highlight the Dreaming Tree, the battlefield that's in Presto's control, for allowing, the buff spells, which the Lee Sin deck does play, I believe, a decent amount of, to turn into additional card draw.
Yeah, and that's going to be an interesting aspect and dynamic that could actually get you ahead if utilized correctly. And the difficult part here on the Lee Sin player as well is that he's going to need to be a little bit careful about how much he wants to utilize his gear as well, because yes, while you are able to buff units with the Lee Sin ability, which is really strong, if you ready up too many units, you might be recycling too many runes, and that can really slow down your game as well. But we're seeing each player pretty much buffing up their units in the battlefields as well, and making it pretty much a standoff here on trying to figure out how to take that other battlefield.
Well, we've got the SETT Brawler now entering. If we're talking about resources, certainly Teko has managed to keep a lot more of theirs in play, so talk to me a little bit about SETT as a central unit for Techo's deck.
Well, I mean, he is the one that is able to climb the mountain when it comes to having a lot of might on the other side of the board. You see here, of course, that SETT has the ability that when I am played and when I conquer, buff me. Now, at the same time, you can spend his buff to give +4 might this turn, so that can be really scary to be able to deal with. Now, what we just saw as well is that there was a card that was ending up playing, and the hidden card was able to be utilized on Presto's side, and that was an Hourglass, which gives you the ability that when the next unit that is going to die then instead of dying, we'll go ahead and move back to base. And so it's just some really good insurance, especially when you have a 6 might unit. You don't want to lose that. And so bringing that back to base is going to be very strong. And real quick, while they're continuing to look at this, let's take a look at the hands and see what they might be having right here and right now.
Ooh. We talked about the buff spells from before, so Presto with a full hand of buff spells and the Stalwart Poro. We talked a little bit before this all started about how important the Stalwart Poro is, to get in a strong, kind of defensive vehicle you can layer buffs onto.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the hard part. Mid to late game, that might be a little bit harder to do. But what I'm more so very curious about here is we saw some very scary stuff in the set hand. I mean, especially something like Showstopper, which is going to be able to immediately move a unit and, just come in swinging with some heavy attacks here to get back this battlefield that they have just lost. And it's been a couple of rounds now. And we're going to be seeing this going up, soon to be 5-4, if I'm counting everything right with Presto. And he's going against a very strong deck here. Yeah, 4-4 right now. He's going against a very strong set, strong deck, which is set, and has been doing just an absolutely great job on trying to get things moving. And here we go with a charm as well.
Okay. So forcing the set to the field. He's going to be out of there as well. So far, the charm, a very subtle little card, but that feels like it's devastating for Teko here in game 1.
Yeah, and you're exactly right, because you're anticipating. You saw in Set's hand that he had the Showstopper, and that would immediately ready him up, and he'd be able to take a battlefield, but instead was able to utilize Charm, which can immediately select a unit and move them into a base. So basically, nothing is safe in that case, and they were able to remove a huge threat here, especially with the set being out runes. You're looking good right there. And so here we go, seeing the set come back in, getting buffed, and we'll see what they're able to do to get back into this game.
It doesn't seem to be... I wonder if we're going to be seeing any attempt from Teko's side of things to do too much this round. It looks like he's really just trying to set back up again. We do have to note, of course, with a great hand size display, that Teko does have, 4 cards in hand right now, so it feels like at least in the next turn, it's going to have a lot of potential to get, to go up and start really turfing over these battlefields.
Yeah, well, and that's going to be just it, because just as you called out hand size, at the same time, Presto only has 2 cards in hand. And so the options that he's going to be for the rest of the game could be a little bit difficult. And right there, we also see a challenge coming out, which means, you're going to be able to go ahead and select any other unit at a battlefield and immediately have them brawl it out. And so, yeah, you choose a friendly unit and an enemy unit, and they deal damage equal to their mights to each other. But then you also saw Presto go ahead and play a card as well to buff up the Discipline. That is going to be +2 might and also being able to draw a card. And so now Set and the card at the battlefield are going head-to-head to figure out how to maybe survive in this case.
It definitely feels like, Teko is getting frustrated a lot in this game. I think in large part, as we talked about before, the Dreaming Tree occupation for Presto pretty much the entire game means that, every time you're trading off a card for a card, Presto, as we saw from Discipline, is drawing cards from his own card, he's drawing cards from the Dreaming Tree as well, and even if he's down on hand size overall, I think that's deceptively, weaker position there, that he's got positioning on the battlefields, he's got card refresh. It feels like a very tough nut to crack.
It can be, and that momentum there on taking that battlefield was absolutely crucial for the Lee Sin. Like you said, though, the Dreaming Tree is able to go ahead, and when you choose a friendly unit with a spell there, you're able to draw one. So, that is just a lot of utilization that you can use, and that is why so much of these fights have been for that specific battlefield. And here's the scary part, though. Teko's trying to get some momentum back, trying to take a battlefield, because if he doesn't, then at the start of Presto's upkeep, he is going to get 2 additional points. And going from 6-4, this is going to be a whole different ball game here, because that is only going to be 2 points away from being able to win game 1.
Well, with some of the cards we saw before from the deck list coming in, strategically, what's Teko got in the tank here still left open as options to at least try and break open one of the sites?
And I mean, at the same time, it's still good to have the showstopper and another set in hand. You're exactly right. That might be able to get some good momentum. He has a lot of runes that he's going to be able to utilize, but at the same time, this is still a tough battle that Teko is finding himself in, because the buffs are strong when it comes to this Lee Sin player, and Presto has had the answers so far in game 1.
That's looking pretty tough. Do remember, of course, Jedi friends, this is just our first game of our first series, so even if things continue to look poor for Teko, as I do notice, Alan, things have definitely slowed down pace-wise a lot from the early plays, where our players feel like they were trying to get every play in as quick as they can. Teko, I think, very much going deeper into the tank, knowing that there's only perhaps going to be a few options left up before the game's completely unrecoverable.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We are playing the time clock here, and it looks like another card is going to be coming down to the battlefield in this case. And they might very well just be figuring out interactions here and talking amongst each other. And so it's a little tough to figure out maybe what they might be talking about. We see a lot of hand movements here, and so sometimes that might be a little bit difficult, because it's like, they're able to talk to each other in real time and figure things out on interactions and everything. And finally, it looks like we did get a resolution there on the challenge as well, with the SETT player now being removed from base in this case, and now the Kiana might be contemplating of moving in, and trading in, activating the legend ability to then go back to base.
I think
so
we have
one
one
of
of
the
the
things
things.
there.
Yes, I think one of the ones to point out was the Stand United, which I believe came in there from Presto's side of things, which not only buffs the unit but makes the pre-existing buffs stronger for the turn. So, as much as it's been very hard to really predict exactly how much strength is on Presto's side of things, that just exacerbates it further. I do give credit to Teko to be able to at least clear out the Dreaming Tree, but not being able to get any of his own stuff in there, or their own stuff in there, feels like it's just delaying the inevitable.
Yeah, and that's going to be the hardest part here as well, because you're against the clock here, and I mean, you saw right there, Presto was able to take back another battlefield. I mean, and you're seeing how much that gear is coming into play, being able to ready up units, take things in, and now it's 6-4, and that can be a big advantage. At the same time, though, Lee Sin, Presto, is having not a lot of runes, and so it's going to be interesting to see how this is going to continue to go.
Yes, and it's worth noting, for any of you folks who are coming to Riftbound for the first time, certainly I know I find it quite confusing to start off with, that the 8 points will need to come in to finish things out, but right now, I mean, Teko is behind. We've got the set in play. Maybe there's enough mileage to be able to move in on the Dreaming Tree, but we've also presumably got the Zonyas back there again to make it very hard to make any hits really stick.
Yeah, and that's going to be a hard part, but still, Showstopper is going to do a lot of work here as well, being able to get set into the battlefield, and it'll be interesting to see how this will shake out here. But here comes another, just a lot of utility to be able to continue to buff the might of units. And so, right here, we see...
So, Silent, tell me if I'm working out the maths here. Am I right in understanding that SETT could have spent his buff previously to push him up to 9, get buffed again, spend it again, and end up with, up to 13?
Yeah, and you very well could have, but it looks like in this case, especially with the legend ability of SETT, you can go in and attack, remove a lot of the threats, because you get to pick where the damage actually ends up going, and then move out from there. But it looks like in this case, it is going to be a muck of the cards, and game 1 is going to be going over to Presto here.
Ooh. Alright, well, this gives us a good chance to talk over some of the cards that are going to be coming in from the side decking as well. So, I'm assuming, Yasan, in terms of the overall kind of way that the game could have gone, from the Lee Sin deck side of things, that was a pretty good example of how everything could go pretty much as well as possible.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you saw Lee Sin was able to keep up a good hand size, was able to get the answers needed to be able to, have the answers. I mean, Charm came in absolute clutch, but not only that, we saw what Discipline was able to do. We saw what especially the Elder was able to do as well, just with how much might he was able to get up to. Now comes the side decking, though. Do you go ahead and go for Sabotage, where you can go ahead and discard a non-unit card from hand, or even yet go ahead and maybe go for a Blitzcrank to try to then go ahead and grab a very dangerous threat from someone's base and drag it into the battlefield? So there's a lot of opportunity here, so it's going to be fun to see what they select.
Alright, on the other side of things as well, it does feel like the pressure is on Teko here to try and adjust. As we saw through that game, really getting locked out of making too many plays in ultimately, and suffering from lack of card advantage. We see down there at the bottom the choices to bring in here. I mean, Simon, anything that you would be excited to see swapped into the deck specifically?
Well, the hardest part is it might be worth it to maybe bring in the Cannon Barrage to at least deal 2 damage. Getting that damage on all enemies might be able to help get over the top on removing units, which was something that the SETT player did really struggle with here in Game 1. Otherwise, though, it's like, this is kind of a tough matchup, and that's probably one of the benefits of playing Lee Sin here. Not necessarily a lot of people have probably sided for going against a Lee Sin, and so it's going to be interesting to see how Teko is going to be able to take this side deck and utilize it going into Game 2 and possibly even Game 3.
Yes, hopefully we'll get a third game out of the series here, but at least, of course, we will be seeing the battlefields changing out, so hopefully we won't have to try and overcome the difficulty of just getting the infinite cards technique again and again and again. But I don't know. I don't know about you, Simon, but I'm feeling like this could be in 2-0 just because there's so much pressure, to try and figure out what the right thing to do is right now with your side decking, and then go into a must-win game.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing, though. The SETT player Teko is going to be able to choose if he wants to go first or second in this case, and that alone can be a big advantage on how you can go ahead and hit the ground early and try to get points going. I'm not necessarily counting the SETT player out in this case, at least. There's going to be a big part of this that is going to be, can SETT do what SETT does best here? You saw how much Charm did really shut down his opponent here, and, if the Lee Sin player potentially doesn't find Charm or those other answers, I mean, it could very easily go into SETT's favor.
Alright, let's take a quick look at our battlefields then coming into Game 2 of our series, and also our opening hands once they do turn up for our players. So last time from Presto, we did see that things took, almost stumbled out of the gate. It looks like we've got ourselves some potential early plays here. From Teko's side of things, we've kind of got more or less the same thing we had in Game 1. Some early good 1-drop or 2-cost plays, and some decent follow-up as well.
Yeah, exactly. And, this could be a very good turn 1, turn 2 play for the SETT player here, going with going with an early 2-drop and then being able to then go ahead and drop the Kiana to be able to get a lot of early board presence, get some more card draw, and really try to make an impact on this early game. And so right there, though, we already see that someone is coming in hard on the Lee Sin player and immediately able to add a buff, which is going to be a big difference maker here as well. And that's going to be the scary part. On the SETT side, we didn't necessarily see a lot of cards that could add buffs here. So, if you don't have buffs, you can't activate SETT's ability, and that could also be very detrimental against a very high-caliber might deck that Lee Sin is able to provide.
So, let's see. We've got the Pit Rookie on the left-hand side coming out for Presto. Coming out looking relatively strong. I do want to bring in the battlefields we've got here, though, because these feel like they're going to be getting very high impact. So from Presto's side at the top, we've got the Monastery of Harana. When you conquer here, spend a buff to draw one. Both of these teams will be bringing out the buffs. And at the bottom, allowing the Conquer and Hold mechanics to kind of get merged together. So in terms of what we've seen so far, son, how impactful and how should our players be playing into these battlefields?
Yeah, well, I mean, like you said, Reckoner's Arena can be really good on activating the Conqueror's ability. That's really, or let's see, being able to do so. But at the same time, it's like both are able to do a lot here in the sense of as long as you have for like Reckoner's Arena. That's mainly going to be for Kiana here, being able to either draw or ready a rune. You can be able to reactivate those, which can be a big difference maker, and both competitors use those cards as well. But man, we are seeing just how fast, this Lee Sin player is able to go, buffing up, the Monastery of Hirana here, and being able to just make it be like, okay, good luck taking this. I already got so much might here, and a hidden card on top of that.
I suppose, well, yeah, because what we've got right now looks very reminiscent of Game 1. The Presto was able to just plant themselves onto one of the battlefields, maybe both the battlefields, and just sit there all the time. At least in this case, for Teko, if you're going to be jumping in and out of the monastery at the top, you can be trying to get some of your own card advantage, and hopefully, keep up, at least in terms of resources.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is going to be a really big set turn here, trying to get things moving. And it looks like they are going to be playing their set out and be able to get things moving, trying to hopefully get some good buffs moving. But Showstopper is going to be able to come in immediately buffing up set and being able to go ahead and attack into the battlefield. That is such a powerful card that set is able to utilize.
And we really haven't seen yet, Salon, what the game can look like when Teko is actually able to get ahead, and in this case, going to force the retreat out from Presto and take over the Reckoner's Arena for the time being. Fiora as well, one which we need to be recognizing from Teko's side of things as well. It looks like we've got a lot more momentum from Teko than we really ever saw in Game 1.
Yeah, and that's been the big difference maker here. It looks like also the Lee Sin player has had a lot slower of a start. Still able to get a good battlefield taken care of, but again, that is how fast Set can come in and just absolutely devastate the board. Yes, we have Presto, who still has a 6 might unit on the board that can make a really big impact, and rightfully so. Teko is going to be calculating out how to manage that, but at the same time, having a Fiora out as well has such a strong ability, being able to have shield, deflect, and not only that, ganking as well, which can be very scary and hard to deal with.
Yes, and ganking isn't even something which we got to feature in the previous game at all. So, alright, I mean, so far so good. We have got the reassumption of the Reckoner's Arena from Presto's side as well, so far things have been kept on the medium, but again, the big change from the first game, we're not seeing that endless flow of cards coming in, so maybe this time Presto will be a little bit more vulnerable to the counterplay.
Yeah, and that's gonna be the biggest thing here. It's more so of, I'm taking the battlefield, cool, I get a point. You're taking the battlefield, you get a point. And it's almost like they keep having those answers, luckily, but at the same time, it's like, how long can you sustain that, especially with drawing multiple cards potentially a turn with the battlefields and things of that nature? Who's going to get the better answer? And then after that, who can now hit the ground running and continue to utilize this? At the same time, we've talked in the past about how vital it is to have a good rune count, and right now we see Set, he has 3. Whereas Lee Sin right now, he's at 6. And, I mean, soon that could very well be going up to 8 as well, which is going to be a big difference maker. And this hand size. Holy... I mean, look at that.
Yeah, we're seeing some cards, again, even during the whole of the first game, I don't think we see Kinko Monk being played at all. So, I mean, I think, son, the way I'm reading this at least, it feels like Teko is feeling the pressure of being one game down in this series, and is trying to really assert themselves very strongly early on, as you said, at the expense of their resources. But perhaps long term, with such a powerful looking hand, they'll be able to recover and build a more, stable mid-game.
Yeah, well, and that's going to be the hardest part, though, is because both these battlefields are so good at utilizing card draw, and both players have buffs. And so right there you see a Charm moving in, and he's able to take out the Set just like that. And again, just the utilization of not only buffs like Set has, but then also the potential removal that comes with playing green. And so, I mean, Charm has absolutely devastated the Set player in this case. especially because they have been lacking on the counters. Because if, in this case, they did move the unit to the battlefield and SETT had a counter on it, all he would have to do is recycle a rune, activating SETT's legend ability, and then would be able to go right back to base, no harm, no foul. But taking him out when there is no buff on him is a huge game changer and really slowing down Teko right now.
And we talked about this before we even got into this game, you know, just about the SETT decks in general, that, you know, it feels like they've got a really good built-in combo play, but when you disrupt that combo, things start to get a little bit awkward. In this case, though, we do have Fiora being made mighty, so she's going to be tremendously stronger, and we will be seeing a little bit of the sabotage coming in as well to try and make sure that at least this time Teko won't get caught off guard.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that hand value, especially with being able to see the 4 cards in hand at this point, to be able to pick one non-unit out is going to be absolutely vital. And so here they go. They are looking at the hand, and we'll see what Teko chooses to deny here. And so, I mean, it very well could be a discipline minusing +2 might and a card replacement, essentially. That could be a really big deal. Or the defy, which could, you know, counter something that SETT's trying to play, such as Showstopper as well. But Discipline is just such a good card, being able to go ahead and add 2 and draw 1, immediately replacing itself.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing, isn't it? You know, just knowing the cards in the deck means you kind of have to mentally add that to any kind of equation you've got going on. But yeah, at least with the sabotage, there's some degree of comfort of knowing, okay, at least in the immediate future, I've got I know what's in hand there. I can make my plays, and hopefully start to get some real momentum going without being surprised.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you know, having that kind of knowledge can be very beneficial to SETT. You're exactly right. And so Teko has a good advantage here right now, and it looks like getting rid of the Defy was the move that they went with. That's a very strong thing. And then just like that, we see...
Oh, the Call to Glory.
Really great card. A Call to Glory. And that is a scary card right there. As you play this, you may spend a buff as an additional cost, and if you do, you can ignore the spell's cost and immediately give +3 might to a unit this turn. And so now we see the flash of the Discipline and Call.
So, as we mentioned before, the Fiora, when she's up mighty of 5 costs, she will go in, but she will ultimately be used just to trade and clear the battlefield. But right now, I mean, Presto has still got a decent amount of resources. Admittedly, hands are starting to diminish on both sides. But as we move back to Presto's turn, I mean, I'm still feeling relatively confident that Presto should be able to pull this one back.
Well, I mean, and rightfully so. They did finally get rid of the Elder, which was able to put in so much work. Now, at the same time, SETT, the Teko player, or Teko, has the Monk in hand, but the tough part is that you need to at least have 2 targets out. Otherwise, the buffs will just go ahead and fizzle out in this case. And so that's a tough card to be able to do, but still having a Showstopper can go ahead and change the momentum here. And I mean, we are still, even with all these cards in hand, all this back and forth, it is 3-2. And so still a very close game, even though it feels like a lot has happened.
And I'm assuming, you know, based on what we've seen of the decks from before, and what we saw in the previous game, that the SETT deck definitely felt like it could run out of gas in a way which the Lee Sin deck, with its multiple forms of card draw, really didn't seem to do anywhere near as much.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why the battlefield has been so crucial here, because you are able to then spend a buff and just go ahead and pull back in this case. And so that's going to be a big difference maker here. Now, at the same time, still 4 cards left in Lee Sin's hand. Teko has a little bit less idea of what's going to be now in his hand, now that more cards have, of course, been drawn. And so it's going to be interesting to see how he now calculates out trying to get back into this game, trying to get back these battlefields, because if he happens to miscalculate and not be able to take both these battlefields, it's going to be 6-2, and that's going to be very difficult to come back from.
There's the Kinko Monk, so if you remember that one from before, that is the double buffing unit. So we've managed to turn a couple of our pit rookies into stronger overall units, and immediately going to be following up with, I believe, the challenge, the spot removal. So for Teko, things are kicking off here, and this seems like the turn that they're looking to reassert control.
Yeah, this is not too little too late, luck. And challenge is going to be just a very big help here in that, because specifically, you just go ahead and deal damage equal to their mites to each other. A battle attenuated, so because of that, the shield on the Poro is not activated, and so it is a 2 to 3 might battle, and rightfully so. Now the pit rookie is able to take that, and both battlefields are captured, and we are at a tie game.
Yeah, and even, well, doesn't decide to do it this time round, but do you remember the Monastery Harana? Of course, buffs on both sides or from both decks can be spent to get those extra cards in. Immediately, though, Teko will be back into the mix. So 5 to 4. Something you noted before, we were seeing a slightly slower start to the game, but I think our players are, they're going to be swinging body blow to try and creep their points up to the end.
Yeah, and rightfully so. I mean, this is going to just be a big battle, but we're seeing right now Lee Sin's ability now being activated to add a buff to the Kiana, which is then going to immediately be moved into going ahead and taking the battlefield. And I mean, you see how great his 3-cost unit was able to be utilized to ready up the Kiana so that he could go ahead and take this battlefield. And now, just like that, it is 6 to 4. A card is being hidden on the bottom battlefield, and Presto saying, look, here we go. You have 6 runes. Let's see what you have. 4 cards in hand. What are you going to be able to do to deal with both these battlefields? Because as soon as I get to 7, I very easily could go ahead and take this game.
Yeah, it's not looking great. Remember, of course, Teko is down 1-2-0 in the series. If they lose this game, then the series will be done. I mean, Presto certainly has shown great mastery of the Lee Sin deck so far. We will see the monk moving in, so it's got the 4 power to at least make an attempt to move and maybe try and draw out the hidden card. In this case, it's the Stands United, so one of the relatively rare cases we're seeing actually multiple different types of hidden cards in the same deck.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that hidden card is going to be absolutely crucial to go ahead and add that buff there. And so, I mean, that's scary because you just moved in trying to take the battle, and that might have very well just sealed the game here. And so it's going to be interesting to see how the Lee Sin or how the SETT player is going to be able to go ahead and try to get control. But I mean, at this point, it's looking so good for Presto here on taking this game 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to at least be seeing the attempts being made by the Showstopper again. So buff onto the Fiora. She gets her various different effects, so she is very strong to be able to at least try and create some space and get back control of the monastery. So, I mean, at least we've got the attempt being made, but it really feels like Teko's deck is a step, maybe several steps behind Presto's right now.
Yeah, and that's going to be the hardest part, especially when you start getting into the late game. You're almost putting yourself on a clock, especially being down by 2 here. That's going to be one of the hardest parts, is trying to make sure that it's like, if you get a unit out, it comes in, tapped in this case, and there's not going to be a whole lot you can do it unless Showstopper comes in. But still, we see the Fiora being able to use Showstopper to go ahead and attack it and say, hey, now you're not getting any points in the battlefield, but at the same time, now both battlefields are open, so Presto here can move in and go to 7, and if he has a unit that is at the ready, he will be able to go ahead and get this going. And so it looks like instead he does have the ability to do so, and will go ahead and take both battlefields to secure game number 2 and the match.
Congratulations to Presto. That was a spectacularly navigated game. And honestly, I think towards the tail end of that one, the writing was very much on the wall that things were not getting better anytime soon for Teko.
No, not at all. But I mean, we saw some great gameplay and how Lee Sin could, potentially do incredibly well against SETT. And I mean, just a great gameplay from both. And it looks like Lee Sin might be getting a little bit more look. I'm definitely intrigued to see what Lee Sin could potentially do in this meta. But anyway, guys, with that being said, we are going to go to a quick break. There is another cast, of course, which will be shown if they are still in their game. Then with that as well, we will be going off for a quick break and then going back for 3 more rounds. So be sure to stay tuned, and we're excited to see you next time.